Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Hansen, and I am a reference librarian at the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library. Welcome to our event, A Gift for Mary's Peak, with Greg Archuleta, Barry Wolf, and Brian Hay, as well as the event organizer, Dave Eckert. This event is part of the Liz and Bob Frankel Hiking and Environment Spring Lecture Series. If you missed the previous event, A Gift for the Jackson Fraser Wetland, you can find a recording of it on the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library's YouTube channel, or I will try to put a link up there for you as well. Whoops. Hang on one sec. All right. There's a link in the chat, hopefully. The next event, the final event, A Gift for the Denali Creek Regeneration Site at the Bald Hill Natural Area, will be on May 26th, and you can register for that event either through the Benton County Benton County Public Library's website or the Mary's Peak Group, the Sierra Club website. Both of those organizations are sponsors for today's program. We will have a question and answer period with all of today's presenters at the end of the event, so please submit questions you have throughout the presentation, and we'll hold them to be answered at the end. To ask a question, if you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, you can click on the orange box with the white arrow on your screen that should expand and hide your control panel. And in your control panel, you should find a question box you can use to submit your questions. And now I would like to invite Dave Eckert, event organizer and program chair for the Mary's Peak Group of the Oregon Sierra Club, to join us. Dave.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the Corvallis and Benton County Public Library for hosting this. It's a great service. So welcome. We'll get the slide. Here you go. Welcome. My name is Dave Eckert. I am the program chair for the Mary's Peak Group of the Sierra Club. 3 years ago, the Mary's Peak Group of the Sierra Club renamed our spring lecture series after Liz and Bob Frankel. When Bob and Liz lived in Berkeley, Bob was deeply involved with the national headquarters of the Sierra Club. When he joined the faculty at OSU in Corvallis, Liz and Bob initiated the first Sierra Club group in Oregon, the Mary's Peak Group. They then initiated the Oregon State chapter of the Sierra Club. Liz became the Sierra Club's Oregon legislative lobbyist and became a formidable force in Salem, influencing legislation and training other lobbyists for other environmental organizations. Throughout their lives, the Frankels donated large financial gifts to environmental organizations in Benton County. The series this year presents stories about 3 sites special to the Frankels and to you and to me. And they bequeath sizable gifts for these sites from their estate. We are presenting this series from the land called Champinefu. It was named by and for the Ampinefu Kalapuya who nurtured this land, these waters, these geological features, and native species for over 500 generations. In the 1850s, they were forcibly and officially removed by U.S. government troops to the Grand Ronde Reservation. Some Kalapuya went to the Siletz Reservation. Unknown to many current local Benton County residents, Kalapuya culture is alive, and Kalapuya are living on this land. We in the Sierra Club acknowledge, recognize, and honor the Kalapuya and Kalapuya culture, as well as all indigenous cultures. We work to preserve the soil, water, the air, geological features, and the native species that support the living Kalapuya culture so it can continue and thrive into the future on the land of Champinefu. We also believe the acknowledgements are only as good as the relative actions that follow the acknowledgements. The Mary's Peak Group represents 5 counties: Benton, Lynn, Marion, Polk, and Lincoln. Every state has a state chapter. The national office of the Sierra Club is located in Oakland, California. As stated, we support sustaining healthy and living air, soil, water, native species, and geological features by taking people on hikes, and inspiring appreciation and understanding of the environment that supports us all. We hold programs that are educational and public tours of special environmental features. We plant a lot of native plant species annually and work with both students and adults to make this process integral to everyone's lives. Many of these plantings are along local creeks to spawn appreciation of our local living waters. We have a digital weekly newsletter that is free and available to everyone who requests it. The newsletter includes our upcoming activities, political actions, and environmental articles. Just search for Mary's Peak Group and click on this part of the website. We are a membership organization, but participation in activities is open to the public and not dependent upon membership. The gift trilogy presentations are about the Frankel's gifts to local organizations to be used for 3 natural areas in Benton County: Jackson Fraser Wetland, Mary's Peak, and Bald Hill Natural Area. Today's presentation is about a gift to the Mary's Peak Alliance of Afrana for Mary's Peak. Like Mike said, our next program on May 26th is about the Frankel's gift to the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition to regenerate the headwaters of the North Branch of Denewi Creek on the Bald Hill Natural Area. For our program today about Mary's Peak, we have 3 presenters: Greg Archuleta, Barry Wolf, and Brian Hay. Following their presentations, there will be a Q&A panel, and we are honored to be joined by Stephen Frankel and Anne Frankel, son and daughter of the late Liz and Bob Frankel, to help field your questions and comments. And now I am honored and excited to introduce you to our first presenter, Greg Archuleta. Greg is a member of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Rhine. He is of Santiam Kalapuya, Willamette Tumwater, Clackamas, Chinook, and Shasta inheritance. Greg works for the Confederated Tribes as a cultural policy analyst. He is a multifaceted artist and teaches community cultural arts classes in carving, native art design, and basketry that focus on the tribes of Western Oregon and the Lower Columbia River region. Greg has worked with the Mary's Peak Alliance and the U.S. Forest Service on Mary's Peak. I have hiked on Mary's Peak with Greg multiple times, and I have cherished those experiences. Greg will speak to the Kalapuya and Grand Ronde interests regarding Mary's Peak. He will also talk about how the Kalapuya and Grand Ronde would like their cultures, people, and homeland to be presented to the general public. Greg, we are honored to have you present with us today. Thank you for all of your work. Greg. Greg, can we have audio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better? Lahayam Kanaway Tilikam. Naga Miflak Kaba Slush Tum Tum Naga Miflak Kaba Mansaika Uksan. Naga Sawas Ilihi Tilikam. P Slush and Saika Wawa Kanamax Kaba Mary's Peak Uksan. I first wanted to kind of welcome you in our tribal language that we use today, Chinakwawa, at the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. And just said that I was happy to be here with everybody, and that it's great to be able to share about the tribe's connection and our interests in regards to Mary's Peak. And thank you, David. And yes, Dave mentioned us being out and about on Mary's Peak. We did a lot of that in the past year, and that was great to be there working with them on these activities that we've been doing. If you're not familiar with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, we're made up of over 30 tribes and bands from Western Oregon, including the Chinookan people from the Columbia River region and Lower Willamette River, the Kalapuya people of the Willamette Valley, the Umpqua and Shasta Takelma people from Southern Oregon area. And through numerous treaties, these tribes and bands were relocated to the Grand Ronde Reservation. The reservation is located halfway between Salem, Oregon, and Lincoln City. If you're familiar with Spirit Mountain Community, that's the tribal casino, and then our reservation lands are not far from there, where we have our community, tribal government, and health and community services housing. And then we have forest lands up in the mountains there, about just under 10,000 acres today. Our people and Pinafu are the Marys River Kalapuya that resided in the Corvallis area from time immemorial, are part of the tribes and bands of the Kalapuya that were relocated to the Grand Ronde Reservation. And so Mary's Peak Chanmantui is one of our important places, Mary's Peak. And the stories that we have go back fairly long history. We have old stories, or the ancient stories that we call Ikonam in Chinakwawa, and those old stories kind of tell how things came to be. And we do have stories about Mary's Peak and how at one time there was a great flood that came, and the people went to the mountain to get out of the floodwaters to survive, the animal people. And so those and many other stories that tie to the area are important to our tribes, and we still share those stories. And the Ikonam are old stories that we share. The full story is usually more in the winter time, so we don't tell a lot of them outside the winter time. Maybe just little pieces. We have kind of customs or taboos that if you tell these stories outside the winter time, you might get stung by a bee, or you might get a snake wrapped around your leg or something like that. So we're pretty careful. So that's kind of a little background on the tribe itself. And today I wanted to kind of share, as David was mentioned, kind of what the tribe's connection is to the Mary's Peak, as well as some ideas and possibilities for the opportunities that come through the interpretive program that will be happening. And one of the things that kind of ties to this is that during the past year, and before that, working the tribe and David and others working, we were able to name different streams and creeks on Mary's Peak, both in the Mary's River Kalapuya dialect, and then Alsea and Yonkan, working with both Confederate tribes of Grand Ronde and Confederate tribes of Siletz. And so that kind of ties to, I think, one of the great interests that we have and possibilities for the future would be to have kind of like an atlas or something, or ways to share the tribe's language and connection to places that you can see from the top of Mary's Peak. For instance, some of the mountains like Mount Hood actually in Chinookan is Wakonkan. We have several names, our Nifty Yongi in Malala. But being able to pick the tribal place names for places you can see from on top of the mountain, have a little maybe atlas or ways to share those tribal names that kind of create that connection for the Marys River Kalapuya, as well for our other tribes, and the importance of those mountains and places for our tribes throughout Western Oregon. So that's one possibility. Also, I mentioned the Ikonam and how it would be great if we could have methods and ways to share Ikonam at certain times of the year when it's appropriate to share. And it just reminds me that wintertime, as I mentioned, was when we shared those stories. But we were up there a few weeks ago on top of Mary's Peak, and it was still snowing up there, and the wind was blowing really, really good, and it was nice and cold and chilly on the upper part. But that's usually the season, and the winter, when there's snow up there, when those old stories are told. And as we went down lower elevation where there wasn't no snow, we were able to see some of the landscape from there. And one of the things that we saw was the bear grass, and it was it's pretty early in the year. This grass looked like it survived through the winter at that elevation. We were a little lower on the mountain, but that ties to our connection to land and the different opportunities to maybe share about the important plants that you see on Mary's Peak and the connection they have to the tribal folks. Bear grass is used for design elements in basketry, and we have many plants. Hazel, which we're gathering now, is important in making basketry, and hazelnuts were important traditional foods. So all those are kind of things that maybe we have interpretive opportunities to do, sharing the importance of those things to the tribe. And then you have the landscape, and then the water is so very precious and important to us that I think that voice also needs to be shared, of the waters that come, headwaters from Mary's Peak, and the importance that they have for all people, for our survival and benefit, the watershed, Corvallis being there, and things like that. So those are some kind of things that we want to see and look at for opportunities for interpretation in multiple different ways. And this is one of our tribal members, Tina, when we went up a couple weeks ago, and that our connection to Mary's Peak is historic and cultural from time immemorial, but we also have that connection today, and the opportunities that how we connect with the land. If it's opportunities for gathering the different plants, or picking berries, watching the strawberries. There's lots of strawberries in the area, wild strawberries. Just to be able to eat fresh wild strawberries, and just sharing the importance of those, that so when visitors come to Mary's Peak, they'll be able to understand a little better the tribe's presence, that it's ongoing for today as well as for tomorrow, that we always think about the future and our future generations, and how we would like a landscape like Mary's Peak continue to be preserved and maintained, so that our future generations have opportunities like we have today, and the benefits that were provided us by our ancestors as they had their connection to the landscape there. So that's just kind of brief kind of overview of some opportunities, and I look forward, and the tribe does, and looking at different possibilities as the interpretive program moves forward. And I just want to thank David and the many others that have been working hard, Forest Service, the watershed crew, that have all been helpful to us, and as we connect to the landscape there, and be able to share stuff with our tribal members, like a story map we did on the waters and the names of the creeks. But thank you very much, and Hayamasi.
Greg, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to work with you, and I really hope that we can facilitate all of your wishes on the work on Mary's Peak. And like I said, you are personally, and the whole Grand Ron is wonderful to work with, and we're just really honored to do so. Thank you. All right, so let's move on. Our next presenter is Barry Wolf, co-founder of the Mary's Peak Alliance and current steering committee member. Barry also serves on the executive board of the Oregon Coast Alliance and the North American Truffling Society. Barry is an emeritus professor of ecology and earned his PhD from OSU's Department of Botany and Plant Pathology. Barry met Liz and Bob Frankel when he joined the Sierra Club in Corvallis in 1994. He became a hike leader in 1996 and served as chair of the Mary's Peak Group from 1998 to 2010. Barry has probably led more public hikes on Mary's Peak and other local natural areas than any living local person. He will talk about how the Mary's Peak Alliance got into the effort to inspire and educate the public about Mary's Peak and how the Alliance intends to make the best use of the Frankel family gift for Mary's Peak. Barry and I have worked together for many years, and I really look forward to many more years of working together. Barry Wolf.
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. Mary's Peak. Each time when I drive from Corvallis to Philomath, I look out to see if Mary's Peak is visible. It's a mountain very dear to my heart. We're fortunate to have this wonderful mountain so close to Corvallis. And I love being on the summit because of the views of the valley. I joined the Sierra Club because many of the hikes that it offered would introduce me to the trails on Mary's Peak. And when I met Liz and Bob Frankel, they explained to me many more reasons to appreciate this magical place, such as the flowers that are in the rock garden and the large stands of noble firs. The Frankels talked me into becoming a hike leader for the Mary's Peak group. And then in 1998, they talked me into becoming chair of the group, which I did for 12 years. And throughout those years, I would hike with the Frankels, and many of those hikes were on Mary's Peak. And each time, they would open my eyes to new wonders that are there. Then in 2011, early 2012, something happened. A significant infrastructure construction on the Mary's Peak summit suddenly appeared, and without any local public notice or input. This shocking and invasive intrusion into the visual experience and the sensitive and rare botanical community led Corvallis residents to become quite concerned. Why weren't the unique botanical and scenic qualities of Mary's Peak protected? Now, leading these concerns included Liz and Bob Frankel, and Tony Vanderheide, and Phil Hayes, Esther McAvoy, Dave Eckert, and myself, among many others. We felt that local residents and Mary's Peak landowners were gradually losing an awareness of the cultural, the ecological, and the physical importance of Mary's Peak. What was to be done? Well, after conferring with Liz and Bob Frankel, it was apparent that an organized effort was needed. We needed to reverse the growing apathy and diminished veneration for this iconic public feature. We talked to many people, we discussed many strategies, and we weighed our options. And following the advice of Liz and Bob Frankel, Dave Eckert and I formed the Mary's Peak Campaign as a program of the Mary's Peak group of the Sierra Club. The Frankels told us that in the past, local public schools took students up to Mary's Peak every year. And unfortunately, that program was abandoned for budgetary reasons. The Frankels felt that the student field trips were critical for inspiring not only the students, but their parents and the teachers as well. David and I spent the first year of the campaign planning with the schools to restart the program. The Mary's Peak campaign would cover the cost and provide the guides. We raised funds and searched for local Mary's Peak experts to be our interpreters. And our first field trip up there with the students to Mary's Peak was in May of 2014. And it involved 200 students, 50 parents, and 15 teachers. So there was interest. And we led them with 28 interpretive guides. The campaign raised thousands of dollars for the busing and the rental and the delivery of the required and necessary portable toilets to the summit parking lot. This program was an overwhelming success in every way. Now, in 2015, with an expanded budget, programming and organizational structure, we decided to move the program from the Sierra Club to the Alliance for Recreation and Natural Areas, known as AFRANA. This Benton County nonprofit organization works to protect and to improve natural areas and recreational areas such as Mary's Peak. AFRANA was organized to handle our growing logistical requirements, and we transformed the program name from Mary's Peak Campaign to Mary's Peak Alliance. We continued to collaborate in our programs with the Sierra Club, which supported our creation. But under the Alliance, the mission became to inspire the public and the Mary's Peak property owners to appreciate the physical, the ecological, and cultural assets of Mary's Peak. The Mary's Peak Alliance has partnered with the Siuslaw National Forest staff, and we have agreed to a memorandum of understanding document to solidify this partnership. We train and the Forest Service certifies our interpretive guides. Since 2015, we have certified more than 60 Mary's Peak interpretive guides. We lead student and adult field trips on Mary's Peak Forest Service land. And since 2014, we have led thousands of Benton County and OSU students to the summit. And our public tours have included visitors from around the world. We organized a convening of local sovereign nations of the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, as well as Mary's Peak property owners at the OSU Longhouse. The purpose was to name 10 Mary's Peak unnamed tributaries in the 3 homeland languages, the Kalapuya, the Wusit'en, and the Yago'en. The result of the convenings was that both Confederated tribes worked together to prescribe the creek names, and we coordinated the official approval process for the indigenous creek naming through the Oregon Geographic Names Board and the U.S. Geological Survey. Now, throughout the early years of the Mary's Peak Campaign and Alliance, Bob and Liz were providing guidance and support toward the goals of inspiring people to love, appreciate, and protect Mary's Peak. Their solid understanding of advocacy, education, and science was critical for our organizational development. They were our thought leaders and our constant inspiration. And after Bob passed away in 2017, Dave and I would make pilgrimages to Liz's assisted living home in Portland to tell her what we were up to and to receive advice from her. And then in 2019, Liz's son, Stephen, contacted us to let us know that Liz had passed away. And later, Stephen indicated that Liz and Bob bequeathed significant fundings to be used for inspiring Mary's Peak property owners and the public to appreciate and protect this very special place. Now, Dave and I discussed options with Stephen and concluded that his parents' bequest will be used in 3 related programs. We were going to expand, and we are expanding, the student field trip program on Mary's Peak, to expand the certification training of the guides, the interpretive guides for Mary's Peak, and to develop with the Forest Service and other partners the long-term Mary's Peak interpretive plan and implement it within 5 years. Here's a list of some of our current actions. Our first investment of the Frinkle gift was to produce a virtual Mary's Peak field guide video. This video was made available to our participating schools who we partnered with on the pre-pandemic student field trips. Current students who missed the actual field trip due to the pandemic now receive a virtual educational experience. Post-pandemic, the video will serve as an introductory preparatory educational experience before they are provided the guided trek to the summit. You can now view the 1-hour public video on either Vimeo or YouTube. and we can have that post in the chat, the link to those pages. We're in discussions with the Forest Service to produce virtual audio, video, and geographic interpretive programs for smartphone apps and other technologies. Our goal is that the public and the students can use the programs while visiting Mary's Peak or at home or in school. We are planning in-ground interpretive displays that both educate and encourage visitors to protect Mary's Peak and all of its resources. We organized a convening of property owners, regional visitors bureaus, local tribal sovereign nations, and related nonprofit organizations. And from that convening, we developed wide support and interest in collaboration to produce long-term Mary's Peak interpretation and protection. We will be funding the expansion of student field trips to include all interested schools in Benton, Lincoln, and Lynn counties. And we will also expand our public field trip offerings for any requested group. We will be expanding our recruitment and training of more interpretive guides, and who will become knowledgeable in the ecological, physical, and cultural characteristics of Mary's Peak. We plan to expand our existing presentation programs. We plan to promote the production and distribution of more written and visual programs for visitors bureaus beyond what is already available. And we will be inspiring and funding more Mary's Peak art that tells the story of Mary's Peak through a separate cultural lens through our existing ArtSend Mary's Peak efforts. And finally, we plan to provide Mary's Peak property owners with materials and information that will provide protection for the most sensitive Mary's Peak ecological assets. They will also provide inspiration for the public to protect Mary's Peak. And we believe that with gentle reminders, the vast majority of people will honor and protect Mary's Peak. So let me end my portion of this presentation with a question for you to consider. What inspires you to appreciate and protect Mary's Peak? And we'll provide you with a link on our page here with an email address that you can contact us with your response. And now let me turn this back to you, David, and on to Brian Hay.
Well, thank you, Barry. I am so deeply appreciative of all of your work over the many decades that you have been working here locally on so many issues and galvanizing the support of so many people. You're a treasure. So thank you, Barry. Our third presenter is Brian Hay, interpretive specialist for the Siuslaw National Forest. He previously served as the Cape Perpetua director. Prior to joining the U.S. Forest Service, he worked for the National Park Service, U.S. Coast Guard, and in the environmental industry. He holds degrees in anthropology and public history with a graduate certificate in natural resource management. Brian has partnered with the Mary's Peak Alliance for over 6 years and has been a constant companion and supporter in all of our endeavors. He is also the star host of our recent video, A Mary's Peak Field Trip. Brian will talk today about how the U.S. Forest Service, in partnership with the Mary's Peak Alliance, will build upon the existing and planned Forest Service public Mary's Peak interpretation programs. Brian, it is such a joy to work with you. On with it.
Thank you, Dave. And just wanted to test out first whether everyone's able to hear me all right.
Yes.
Great. And is my screen sharing out correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about the value of interpretation on Mary's Peak for the Forest Service. and really for anyone connected with this special place. So I'm going to go over a little of what an interpretation plan is, why we want one, and what we might accomplish together through this incredible gift. So first, to think about the opportunity, I like to just imagine the feeling of being up on Mary's Peak on a clear spring day between the ocean and Cascade Peaks, the faint valley below, got wind through the grass, colors in the meadow. And then think about all the people, families, children who've experienced Mary's Peak, and then think about all of its stories, its deep past, its presence, its life. And the goal of interpretation is to illuminate and reveal the significance of this place. It's a powerful communication tool to tell these stories in intentional and compelling ways, in ways that are relevant and meaningful. So interpretation the goal is to share the big picture, why people should care. And for the Forest Service, it helps us to articulate our purpose and value, what we do, what we stand for. And our purpose is to support nature in sustaining life. And through interpretation, we can bring more people into that story of conservation. And an especially important time now when people are losing their direct relationships to the land and there's more moving and dislocation, this is a way to rebuild these generational and community connections. And so why we want to collaborate on this? Well, this is essentially what we're envisioning is a place-based plan. And studies show that the public puts value on place more than on our individual organizations or our initiatives. So people talk about emotional connections to special places, and from that experience, they can appreciate the work required to sustain them. So Mary's Peak connects to so much around it. By this collaboration, we expand the possibilities of what we can do. So what exactly is an interpretive plan? Well, there are many different kinds. Some tie entire regions together, some focus on one small area. And basically, it's a way to assess what we have in and around Mary's Peak, our resources, who we have, our audiences, what do we want people to experience? It's a roadmap to our desired future conditions. So how can we influence visitor behavior to meet our goals, protect resources, provide access? And in a lot of ways, a plan begins and ends with themes. So many different stories come together around Mary's Peak. You can take the dramatic views over all of Western Oregon, or the powerful forces that created Mary's Peak, and contrast that with the rare, fragile beauty of the life it sustains. There's the deep cultural significance, the watersheds that connect landscapes across Oregon, old growth forests, glimpses of an ice age past. So themes are a way that we can focus our messages. They're what tell us what happened or is happening and why that matters. And through our stories and methods, we can find ways to bring those themes to life. So first, we try and answer the question, do our themes capture the full meaning of a place? Do they allow for multiple points of view or new perspectives over time? And through the plan, we can match all these different elements together in the best way possible. And so why do interpretive planning? There's many reasons. To tell the stories more effectively, to learn more about our audiences, including audiences we aren't currently reaching. It's a way to leverage resources and connect to all these larger efforts in the area, and to ensure that we're sharing accurate, consistent, relevant information, culturally appropriate information. And the end result from a thoughtful and well-designed plan is a set of shared goals and messages, really a shared vision. You can look at the most cost-effective and sustainable solutions, things like visitor and resource issues. You can prioritize projects, determine short-term and long-term needs, and you can implement consistent messaging, branding, style. Some of the things an interpretive plan isn't necessarily is it's not the same as a visitation plan or a promotion plan. So the end goal isn't necessarily to increase the number of people coming to an area. And there is concern that interpretive plan can degrade resources, and that's valid. I would say this is a way to consider and assess all of the opportunities and how to do that in a way that supports conservation and resource protection. I like to say that interpretation is conservation. For every dollar you put into it, you should get 5 back in the long run, not just from visitors or tourism, but from sustainability, from that appreciation that you can inspire. So what are some things that you might actually see on the ground, and that we would be interested in seeing and working with others to create from both the combination of a plan and funds to implement and support a plan? Well, some of the things that Barry mentioned, just having sustainable interpretive programs on or off site. And I want to mention the funds wouldn't be used to, say, pay for our staff, but they can support a staff presence on site through volunteer programs or internship programs, and build this array of opportunities, guided hikes, demonstrations, or just people on the ground to answer questions. So there's a lot of different ways to get messages out, but there's nothing quite like the value of having a face, a voice, and a story behind that message. So infrastructure to support interpretation and provide more venues for programs. That enhanced support for volunteer programs or citizen science efforts, training and resources for staff that could be combined to apply to staff across the area. Integrated methods of resource protection, so barriers or design traffic control that doesn't diminish scenic value and reinforces our themes and messages. Resource protection through trails or recreation features. We might see improved site orientation, and that starts from just thinking about how people first learn about Mary's Peak and get that information to the on-site maps or wayside exhibits, kiosks, design features along the corridor. You might see a database of resources that could help staff across the area to present accurate information, research, images, but also visitor information that helps these services continue to evolve. Virtual interpretive programs. So a whole array of possible app programs, virtual tours, virtual reality programs to audio tour programs. And that also extends to visual media. So coordinating website and video production and social media efforts. You might see consistent branding and design, which are powerful tools to influence people to create a consistent look and feel across signage or landscape design, printed media. Especially important, as was mentioned, is support for continuing youth programs. It might be more funds for field trips, classroom programs, or outdoor schools, teacher workshops. Support for community events and outreach efforts, like the lecture series, public workshops, artist in residence programs. Things like transportation programs or strategies to give more community access or improve accessibility in general. And some results that you often see on sites when there is a plan in place from the Forest Service side is you see reduced vandalism or more compliance with fees and regulations, see less resource damage, people who are more engaged and aware, more community support. You have partners who have increased visibility for the work they're doing, more venues to share their messages. And a piece of final importance I want to mention that be possible with a plan and with funding to implement is with thoughtful, intentional use, a plan can work to be self-sustaining. So it can be used to attract further support, become a blueprint for grant opportunities, both for not just for the Forest Service, but for any of our partners. For us, things like the Great American Outdoors Act, which is something that uses revenues from energy development to fund needed infrastructure on public lands or to invest in conservation and recreation opportunities, we can compete more successfully for additional funds with a plan in place that these projects tie into. And we can all kind of share this as a resource because we're showing how we tie together to these common goals. So for the future, I would just say that we're looking to re-engage in this planning process over the summer to take what we've heard and learned from our initial convening sessions. And we want to create a plan that connects the past, the present, the future, that can inspire community support, and that can be a living and evolving document through time. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dave. And thanks for the opportunity to let me share there.
Thank you, Brian. That was just wonderful, and it's always a joy to work with you and the entire staff at the CUSLA. I mean, it's been just such an honor and a joy. And so, Mike, I think you're going to bring everybody else. Everybody's going to come back on. And over to you, Mike.
Yeah, so if all the presenters could come back on, now is a time to start our question and answer, and I believe that's Stephen and Ann. You want to go first?
Yes, I'm Stephen Frankel and Bob and Liz's son, and I just wanted to say, thank you, Greg, Barry, and Brian, for so much for these wonderful presentations. And I think both Ann and I really enjoyed learning about Mary's Peak and about its past, present, and future. Well, I wanted to say how much it's a place that meant so much to our family. When we first moved to Corvallis in 1965, Mary's Peak was one of the first places we visited, probably the first weekend. And that first year, I remember driving up the old gravel road and climbing around the rickety lookout tower. And then my parents heard about the Mary's Peak Trek, the annual event that was held on the meadows. And years later, I think my dad was still tracking the damage they did. But Ann and I loved playing on the outdoor theater structure, as it gradually fell apart while my dad was botanizing around. And year in, year out, in all seasons and definitely in all weathers, we were on Mary's Peak. We hiked up the old North Trail and later up all the new ones. We checked out the rock gardens, picnic in the meadows, and generally listened to Bob and Liz while they strategized about protecting and sharing Mary's Peak. So, but it's wonderful to hear you, everyone, today.
I just wanted to add, in addition to my thanks for the 3 really different and important, equally perspectives. Everybody has a hand in Mary's Peak, and I'm really happy to see that all these perspectives are working together. But I also wanted to talk about the very end of my parents' life. In 2005, they had to, for obvious reasons, move out of a large house that they had lived in for almost 40 years. And it was in the Northwest Hill part of Corvallis. And they were moving, they had made the decision to move to a developed community, Stony Brook. Many of you know about Stony Brook in South Corvallis. And they were not thrilled about this move. They did not want to move to Stony Brook. They knew it was necessary. They didn't want to do it. But then they realized that, first of all, their house looked out onto a rural field. And of course, my mother looked into all of the planning information and data about the field and determined that whatever development would happen on this field, it would happen after they were dead. So they were happy with that. Secondly, their house looked straight onto Mary's Peak. So for the last 10 years that they were in Corvallis, every single day they woke up with the opportunity, weather willing, to see Mary's Peak at least maybe during the day. And it remained an intense pleasure for them for their remaining years in Corvallis. It was such a huge part of their lives.
Thank you, Stephen. And that was perfect. And I, of course, have been over there at their house at Stony Brook and gazed out there in the formative meetings of the Mary's Peak Alliance and on some of our other issues that we worked on together. And that was always such a joy. Thank you. Well, Mike, I don't know, is there anything in the queue for a question, or should I'll be happy to give one to the panelists, but what do you have anything?
There was one question here. Someone was asking to see the map that Barry had up briefly of the tributaries, creek names, and I can share that really briefly. 1 second. So let's see.
Yeah, it's up.
It's, there you are.
It's there.
All right.
Just for clarity, let's see, do we have them all up? One seems, oh yeah. All the ones that begin with an A are in Kalapuya. And then the ones that say Washeen, Lawahayu, and Pawint, more on the left side, are in the Washeen or Alsea language. And then the one on the far left, Yukon, is in the is Yukon Creek going down the west side of West Point, is in the Yukon language, or as is used now, the Yaquina. And I don't, did you want to say anything to that, Greg?
Yeah, I was going to mention that we have a story map that kind of tells the story of the whole of the process of how the convenings happened for the naming of the creeks with Grand Ronde and Siletz. And so I'll try to get that and put it in the chat here. And you can visit that story map and learn a lot more about the process that happened and how they got their names.
Thank you. And again, just so everybody understands, those names were selected, the Kalapuya names by the Grand Ronde and the Yukon and Washeen names by the Siletz. And the only thing that we had to do was just facilitating the whole process. So is there anything else in the queue right now, Mike? Because I have a question I can ask.
Let's see, a couple of just recently come up. One is a thank you for a wonderful presentation. And then here's a question from Kristen. Did I hear correctly that Greg teaches native basket weaving? The OSU Crafts Center has had a one-day basket weaving class in the past, which was very well attended. And it would be lovely and educational if Greg could host a basket weaving class either through OSU Crafts Center or through a local nonprofit. So something to think about.
Okay, yeah, we can do that as things get better.
Right.
For gatherings. We do some Zoom stuff, but that's always much better in person.
Right.
And then Greg, if you're willing, following the pandemic, we could help facilitate that. So great.
That'd be great.
Right. Mike, anything else, or should I ask my question?
Let's see. Another question was, what is the current status of the communication structures at Mary's Peak Summit?
That's you, Brian.
Let's see, I'm not on mute. That's all still under planning. I don't have any answers to give on that right now. So sorry about that. It's something that's still ongoing. And
Well, and I can follow up that that has been ongoing and it's still continuing to. And we've been following that in the CUSLA staff has been very cooperative and in the communication of that whole process. And we're all hoping that it's getting a good resolution. Okay, anything else?
No, not at the moment. So if you had a question or two.
Yeah. I'd like to make a go around of everybody and say, what is your favorite either place or experience on Mary's Peak? And why don't we start with Ann? I know, put you right on the spot there, but I know you have a place right off the top of your head or a certain moment.
Just had to unmute. So Stephen, are you going to talk about?
Oh, what, our wedding?
Yeah.
You can.
All right, I will. So you get to think about something else. So this is actually shared, and I'm stealing it completely, but I had to go first, so I get to do this. When Stephen and Judy, Stephen's wife, were married, her father and brother and sister came up. It was a very small event at our house. And I think it was the day before, or maybe it's the day after, my mother was like, okay, what are we going to do with these people who've never been to Oregon, really, never been to Corvallis area, what do we do with them? So she catered, and she was a very good cook. She catered a lovely picnic. We all drove up to the top of Mary's Peak and we had a picnic. And I think it was before the picnic, we went walking. And of course, Judy's dad was elderly, so we didn't walk that much, but we went, it was July, like July 21st, 22nd, something like that. We walked into the meadow and the tiger lilies were blooming at full bloom. So the entire meadow was, had tiger lilies all over the place. And everybody was just, these people from Southern California had never seen tiger lilies like this. They were enchanted. And I remember we'd lie down so that you could look up at the tiger lilies. And it was just this magical moment. And of course, I'd seen the tiger lilies like this. I think there was Calichortus too, maybe. But the tiger lilies were just glorious. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Ann. Stephen?
Well, my memory is just on hot days, my parents would head up and decide to have a picnic on top of Mary's Peak for dinner. And I was in high school, I was a bike racer and bike rider. And I used to just enjoy riding my bike up Mary's Peak, have dinner, and then I would ride down while everyone else was driving. And it was so wonderful.
Great. Greg?
I guess I'll tell on us, Dave, and when we were up doing the filming on the creeks and stuff, and we couldn't go very far, and we were finding different foods like the huckleberries and the black caps, and we kept munching on them all the way through the trip, trying to focus on the filming, but we kept stopping for all the food and getting everybody familiar with the berries and eating them, so then everybody was eating the berries. But just that kind of, I think each time you go up there, there's so many unique experiences. When we just went up and the snow was happening, wind was blowing, it was freezing cold up there. It's nice and see all the snow and everything, and then go down lower, and then we found the bear grass there that was in such nice condition. So there's just, I think just every time you go up there, there's unique experiences. Just being by the creeks and the waters, in the watershed, and the just beautiful streams that flow through there, and this unique kind of protected areas, and it was just really cool to see those too in the canyons and stuff like that. So I think each time you go up there, there's kind of a unique experience that you get to feel and see, and so that's pretty neat.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed that too. Barry.
I have to agree with Greg that it's every time up there is a unique experience, no matter how you go and how long you stay and which way you look. Personally, I have a favorite trail, and that's the Meadow Edge Loop Trail, and it's a relatively easy one, but it has great diversity to it, and I see lots of mushrooms going up and flowers almost throughout the summer months. It's got the opportunity to cross the Parker Creek, and you can see its origin in another place. So it has a lot to offer. And then from the Meadow Edge Trail, you could take a little spur and go up to the summit and look around. And I enjoy always looking west as well as east. There's some wonderful places, and I try to go through my mind of what I'm seeing, of which mountain is which, whether I'm looking west or whether I'm looking east. And it's like going home and saying, I've been here, I remember. And I think of other places too. When I'm up there, I say, I was on that mountain, and I remember when I went there and how I got there. So Mary's Peak offers to me a lot of wonderful memories, and I look forward to climbing it until the last days I can climb it. And I hope everyone will make an effort to try every trail they can, because each one is different, and it's a very special place, and we should be very pleased that we have it in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Brian.
Yeah, and the same thing others said, each time is a unique experience, but I was actually thinking of the same day that Greg had mentioned. And I was thinking about all the thimbleberries, especially, that were just, at their most perfect moment. And our little descent down into, I can't remember which one that was now. Was it Amelant?
Yes, probably.
Okay. So I have just wonderful pictures there, but I can almost remember just climbing down the different features we saw along the way. And there was the massive Douglas fir with another fallen with one fallen directly on top of it. And we got down there, and it's just such perfect little pools, little, miniature pools there that I took some video and pictures, and just hearing the sound of it and standing in that place and kind of that hidden pocket of Mary's Peak that not many people have maybe ever been to. That was a wonderful experience being down there. And there was something about the flow of the water and the colors in it. It was unique. Out of all the wonderful places we got to see and visit with the streams.
Yep, I agree. Thank you. Now, Mike, I don't know. We haven't talked. Have you been up there? Do you have a favorite place?
I've been up there several times, some with my kids, and I guess one of our favorite things is just sitting out and looking over the valley below. I mean, it's magical up there at the top.
It is. Well, I want to thank every one of you. This is a special group of people, and I'm honored to be with you. And look forward to doing this again sometime. And Mike, do you have any closing statements for the library and telling about the recording?
A recording of this will be up shortly, usually within a few days to a week. So you can look for that on our YouTube channel.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. This has been a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.